Like, this fear of God thing is not an Old Testament concept that Jesus came and eradicated.
Hey, welcome to Ascend the Hill with Jeremy Austill. I'm Jonathan, this is Pastor Jeremy, and welcome back. It's been a couple weeks, a few weeks.
Yes, I think it's been about 3 weeks
Yep.
since we did one of these, and I don't know how many quote faithful listeners we have, but as much as anything, I just enjoy doing these because it's a chance to rethink the message and have a little bit more of a conversation about what we felt the Lord was trying to say to us. But at the same time, I've had 4 weeks of non-rhythm.
Yep.
And I am a creature of habit. I like routine. I like to do the same things repeatedly. And so between the 2 encounter weekends, Michelle and I went on a minister's retreat. And then last week was fall breaks. We went to the mountains a couple days. So this not only is the first time I've done this in a while, it's like the first what feels like normal day at work in a month, and I am here for it.
Yeah.
So
After the busy, it was funny. I was talking with someone, another staff person, and I was like, "How's this week?" I was like, "Easy," and they're like, "Easy." I was like, "Well, normal compared to the past couple of weeks is like normal feels easy after you're grinding out for a few weeks. It's like normal's good. We can do good."
Yes,
good.
The encounter weekends were so awesome.
Yep.
And looking forward to doing them again next year. But they were certainly a labor of love, a major work project for our team, which we're glad to do it. I mean, it's our joy, it's our honor. It's what we get paid to do, so to speak. But,
it was fun.
But it was definitely a lot in a short burst of time.
Yeah. It was fun. It was a good 2 weekends, and then a good past couple of weeks trying to get reset, I guess, after even the build up to those kind of weekends. So it was great, and we're gonna get back into the rhythm too of doing some fun little preamble to talking about the service today.
Yeah.
And it's all pumpkin spice.
Preamble.
Yeah, it is low 50s or high 40s outside. I haven't checked in a minute, but
it was 47 degrees when I went to the gym this morning.
Yeah,
it was incredible.
Yeah.
I was like, let's go. I smoked a brisket yesterday.
Yep.
And I started at 3 a.m. I started my fire. It was very chilly outside. I had my robe on. I got this big robe. I had it on. Of course, I had to put it in the wash because it smelled like smoke by the end of the day. But anyway.
Well, we're going to do this or that pumpkin spice edition.
Oh, my.
So if you have to have one, not just to have, but to actually consume.
Yes.
You got to pick one.
Okay.
So first one, English muffins or Pop-Tarts, pumpkin spice flavored?
English muffin or Pop-Tarts? Is an English muffin like, it's not quite a biscuit? It's not like quite a bagel?
Yeah, it's like that hybrid. It looks it looks like a hybrid between the two.
I'll take English muffin.
Okay.
It feels like it's more real than a Pop-Tart. There's no way a Pop-Tart is actual food.
Definitely all sugar.
Yeah, I mean it is a factory, lab manufactured thing. No, I loved Pop-Tarts growing up. I'm talking about destroyed them. My favorite Pop-Tart was s'mores. Never had a pumpkin spice one. I loved the s'mores Pop-Tarts when I was a teenager. Those are really good, actually. And I mean, I would annihilate them. They were one of my favorite things to eat. But yeah, I'm gonna go English muffin. Feels more natural. Feels. I don't. How would they do that? Would they like bake it in?
I guess you just. A lot of times it's like a little spice.
Okay.
You sprinkle in. I guess.
Sounds good.
Okay, pumpkin pie coffee creamer or pumpkin spice biscotti?
Pumpkin pie coffee creamer or pumpkin spice biscotti. That biscotti is like the little sticks.
The sticks that you mix it, like you dip in the coffee and you eat.
Yeah, give me the biscotti.
Okay.
And here's why. I have come to the realization that I can't do, store-bought creamers.
Yep.
I am at the point in my life, I don't want to get into the realm of TMI here, but like coffee creamers from the store annihilate my system.
Yep.
And by annihilate it, I mean they block everything.
Yeah.
And they make me feel awful.
Yeah.
I used to love coffee creamer. I every year look forward to Christmas time and getting the peppermint mocha and it's staying in the fridge all for 2 months. but I can't do it anymore. It makes me feel weird. It messes with my system. And so I'm out on creamer. Give me the biscotti. I'll stir it in. I like the crunch. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. This will be interesting. Twinkies or gum, pumpkin spice?
Oh my gosh.
And it's like that extra gum, that kind of gum.
Yeah. That just sounds gross. And so I'll go with the Twinkie, even though Twinkies are something else made in a lab.
Yeah.
I used to love a Twinkie. Like back in the day, I would destroy a Twinkie. Now, like stuff that has filling in it is kind of gross to me. But a pumpkin spice Twinkie seems like a better idea than pumpkin spice. And I chew a lot of gum, you know, but no.
Yeah. All right. Last one. Pumpkin spice butter.
Okay.
Or cream cheese?
Pumpkin spice butter or pumpkin spice cream cheese? I'll say butter, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't even, I like butter. Do you remember the era? You might be a little young. Man, growing up, we went through this era where everybody in the medical field decided butter and eggs and stuff like that were bad for you. And so instead, once again, in a lab, like we kind of got a theme going here. They decided on margarine.
Oh yeah,
it's like fake butter in a tub, and now we're back to butter's good and margarine. Margarine's was killing us, right? And so I'm gonna try not to go like all RFK Jr. on the food. I feel like I am make America healthy again.
Oh my gosh.
Kind of that, I feel like that right now. But give me the butter. I like cinnamon butter, as in like taking butter and cinnamon.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Some of that. Like so, pumpkin spice mixed with butter, probably a good vibe. Probably a good feeling.
Yeah, and you mentioned that old school. I remember my favorite butter. I don't even know if it was butter, but it was Parquet that you sprayed out of the bottle onto your.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, it was not healthy. Parquet was
no. Yeah, but listen, what it was Parquet. I can't believe it's not butter. That was Parquet, right? Charity, she's nodding in the background.
I can't remember the slogan. That's funny.
I can't believe it's not butter. Well, we can.
Yeah,
we can. It feels like motor oil
from the first taste. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, if any of those scared you.
Wait, are you about to go to the series?
Oh, 100%.
I felt the segue coming. Scared you, fear of God. You had it
dialed
scripted.
up.
But we do need to have like a 60-second to 120-second conversation about college football.
Oh yeah,
because it has been it's been about a 3-week run. I know Tennessee lost to Arkansas. I'm gonna give you your flowers now. Give you what do you got? What do you got?
I was really worried when our quarterback got injured in the fourth quarter, and they put in our backup, and he is short.
Yes,
and he went in there
diminutive.
Yes, he was like. What they showed a point of view from behind the offensive line on one of the shots on one of the series, and I'm like, he is shorter than all of our linemen, like by a head.
Yeah,
and I'm like, how does he see anything?
Yeah.
So when that happened, I was like, I'm pretty sure we just lost the game. We were doing well, like our defense figured out Tennessee.
Yes.
Everything from that game was our defense. It wasn't our offense; it was our defense.
It was great defense.
We got lucky at the end. That's what happened.
Well, it was definitely a frustrating night.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about the Tennessee defense, no team has finished the game with their starting quarterback against Tennessee this year.
Really?
I mean,
I didn't know that.
They're brutal on the quarterbacks. Of course, Florida, their guy left the game, but it was kind of a freak deal. He just kind of randomly hurt his knee. Yeah, I thought, well, when the backup comes in, this kid doesn't look like he's going to have a clue. We're fine.
Yeah.
And then they made that last drive. One of my dearest friends in the world, I mean, it's almost a 30-year friendship at this point. He is a diehard Razorbacks fan.
Let's go.
And but he is one of the most negative. I doubt he's listening, but he's one of the most pessimistic, downtrodden. They have stole my soul and broke my heart so many times. Literally, we're texting through the game, and he's like, don't worry, Arkansas is going to find a way to lose.
Yeah.
I mean, all the way up till the very last play, he's like, I'm telling you, they're going to lose.
Yeah.
And so I didn't mind. I didn't want to lose to Arkansas, but I didn't mind. I was glad my friend got a little joy.
Well, and I feel him because most games that are big like that,
yeah,
we'll lose them, and most of our losses like that are within a score.
Yeah.
And so it's like we're good enough to be there. We're just not good enough to finish. We haven't been, but we did it then. So we'll see. We had a bye week, so we have a tough road ahead.
Who do y'all play this week? Do you know?
LSU, and then it's Ole Miss, and then it's we play Texas at one point and Missouri. So it's like we got.
I hope y'all win all those games.
I hope so too.
I legit, because of my friendship, my buddy, like I've always hoped Arkansas would do well. I don't. Now on the other hand, we played Florida on Saturday and we won, and I can't stand them.
Yeah.
Every Florida fan listener, I love you. God bless you. Pastor Curtis is on our staff, and he's a Florida fan. I love him, but I cannot stand. I mean, I would go as far as to say hate the Florida Gators.
Yeah.
And so even though it was a game that was, all the way nail biter into overtime, I was glad Tennessee won, and now it's Alabama week for the Vols.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying anything.
Yeah.
I hope Tennessee wins. My hopes are not high, but whatever.
Well,
congratulations.
To
you, a Razorback fan.
Yeah.
I always think it's funny when we say congratulations to fans, like we had anything to do with it. But and I'm convinced that we get way more emotionally distraught over this stuff than the players do.
100%. Yeah. I was a nervous wreck all the way up until the last second. So
well, I'm tip of the cap. I'm not. I can't say I'm glad Arkansas won, but if it was going to be anybody, I'm glad it was Arkansas.
Yeah. Well, if there's nothing scarier than your team losing in college football,
look at you just breaking out the segue either way.
We talked about fear on Sunday, starting a new series, and we talked about the fear of God. And it's a very multifaceted topic.
Yes.
And I guess, when you're talking about the fear of the Lord, the fear of God, it's interesting. Most translations do translate it as fear, but we know that it's a very, it has a lot of, it's a catch-all word, it seems like, when it's specifically referring to the fear of God, because there's a lot of definitions packed into it.
Yes.
So why do you think that consistently it's translated as fear rather than, because I know in some ways fear is respect and understanding of who the Lord is in comparison to my stature and everything, like my position with him, it's like he's God. Yeah. He's all knowing, he's this all powerful God, but like why do you think they stuck with fear versus any other word that it can relate to?
That's a great question. And, I tried my best in the message to give clarity on what the fear of God means. You said it: honor, respect, ultimately obedience, submission, awe, wonder, this heightened awareness of God's superiority, and our inferiority in light of who he is, a sense of being overwhelmed at the scope and scale of God in comparison to my own. But within the meaning of that word, Yahweh, I think Yahweh was the Hebrew. Within the meaning of that word, there is room for terror, like the traditional interpretation, I guess, of the word fear: terror, anxiety, trembling, etc. I think probably, I can't speak for translators. My observation would be, when you're thinking about the scope and the scale of God, it's impossible to articulate.
Yeah.
When you're trying to compel someone to take God seriously, when you were talking about the full capacity of God, which is unlimited, to do anything at any time in his overwhelming superiority, maybe the word fear was stuck with, they stuck with it as you described it, because to use something different might in some way minimize the severity and the seriousness with which we should relate to and consider God.
Yeah.
It's a term that in our modern Christianity and modernity, we don't like that term. And again, I think that is very societally influenced.
Yeah.
You know, we just have this societal shift of like making everything as nice and soft and tender as possible, unless you're, making accusations against somebody that's your enemy, and then you can say whatever you want to say. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. We could probably use some fear of God in that. But anyway, I think when you talk about the fear of God, that maybe that is a term that 40 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, contextually wasn't as negative as it feels now, right? Maybe it was a term that said God is the one who gives breath and he can take breath. It's well within his capacity and right. You should have a deep sense of reverence to that, and maybe even a little bit of trembling. I love that when we got to the New Testament, they said, hey, you need to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Hebrews talks about God being a consuming fire.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's really important, and I tried to do it in the message, to make sure everybody understands, like, this fear of God thing is not an Old Testament concept that Jesus came and eradicated.
Yeah.
It was still very much the call of the believer to fear God in the New Testament and beyond. And so if it's in the New Testament, then it is for now.
Yeah.
Right? You just make no, there's certainly things in the Old Testament, like, how they, were to grow their hair and different ceremonial practices that obviously were kind of removed once New Covenant came in, but this thing of taking God very, very seriously is not meant to die, with an Old Covenant. It's meant to be carried on. And so I think maybe just the use of the word is to create a sense of severity and seriousness. And I even look at our society, we're just increasingly casual.
Yeah.
In society, by and large, we're casual. We're not big on formalities. There was an era that I came up in, and I'm sure it was on the tail end, where Mr., Mrs., Sir, Ma'am, you wear this in this environment. There was an era where they wore suits to get on a plane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was a greater formality in society, whereas now society is increasingly casual. So once again, a word or a thought like fear God is almost the antithesis of a society that says fear no one, and a society that has, and Lord, I'm wearing a hat and a sweatshirt to the office, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not against casual. I'm down for it, right? But all of that plays into how we relate to a term and a concept that's ancient, and we got to be careful to not let our, modern experience cause us to nullify or do away with an ancient premise. And the ancient premise is God is serious.
Yeah.
And, I think, I came up at, again, tail end of legalism, of what you can wear and can't wear. And I remember having a pastor that would, it was like, if you went to the movies and then you died, you might not make it to heaven. Yeah. So I came up under that, right?
Yeah.
And I think we swung the pendulum, we needed to get away from that. We needed to mature past that, right? But we swung the pendulum so far the other way, to where even with God, there's a great sense of casualness, convenience, comfort. And I think we just have to be careful to not allow the world around us to shape how we view God. And there's a tension to hold. I know this is a pretty long ramble, and you've probably got multiple questions, but there's the tension to hold of through fearing God, I become a friend of God.
Yeah.
I am a son, but he is my master and I am a slave to him. Like, all of those, it's just a tension in the relationship we have with the Lord that we got to hold well.
Yeah. And you brought up an interesting point about, like, we're in a different time now, and I've seen statistics where, I wish I could quote them or add them. I don't know where they're located, so I don't have the works cited or bibliography. But like, people today feel like, well, it's really bad right now, this, that, and the other. But statistically, when you're talking about like wealth, income, everything people are experiencing, it's gotten better for people over the course of the past 200 years.
Yes.
And so it's almost like 1800s, if you're pregnant, you might die. Yeah. Like, there's a very real chance you're going to die. Yeah. Or your kid's going to not make it through. So you have a bunch of kids because odds are one of them's going to make it, Yeah. But today, you have a bunch of kids. Most of them are going to make it. Yeah. There's still those times where it doesn't. Or you're able to have a house, a TV, a microwave, a fridge. It's like standard with a home. Yeah. So it's like we live in a totally different environment where it doesn't seem like there's as immediate consequences for, well, I'm just going to, Lord, forget you. I'm just going to do my own thing. And it works out because we live in a culture, like the modern culture provides so much fluff that makes us feel comfortable that it's like 1800s, you don't have electricity, maybe no running water. You don't have a lot of things that we have today. So it almost feels like, well, why would I need to fear the Lord? Things are good. Things are cool,
A great point. And that's, as I talked more about the fear of God in the service, we kind of landed on how do you cultivate it or how do you demonstrate it? It's demonstrated through constancy. Yeah. Through intentionality, through focus on the Lord. So the fear of God is not just, I better not sin because there are severe consequences for sin. It is also, I'm not going to just kind of go through my life and engage God on my terms when I want to or when it's convenient for me, whether that is, I've got God scheduled for Sunday at 10:30 about twice a month. Yeah. I've got God scheduled for about 15 seconds before I eat my meal. I've got him scheduled. Well, he's not scheduled. I had a bad day. I need to bring him in on it. Yeah. We need to have a committee meeting. My finances are a mess. God, I need you. I need your help. Yeah. To fear the Lord is to have him be your Lord. Yeah. As in, like, he is the governing body of your life, and all of your decisions and all the way you conduct yourself are received from his instruction, scripturally and by his Spirit. It is, to fear God is to make him the chief priority of your day and your week, your month, your year. And by, chief priority doesn't mean that you never don't think of God. But over time, you live in such a way that there's nothing in your life that isn't touched or informed heavily by God. Yeah. And I don't mean in the sense of, well, he's God, he gives me my breath. I mean, you have intentionally involved the Lord in every single aspect of your life. And that's to fear the Lord too. Because when you read these Old Testament texts, the fear of the Lord wasn't just behave. Yeah. Quit doing bad stuff. Fear of the Lord was the whole orientation of your life has to be centered on him or pointed to him, has to be consumed by him, saturated by him, filtered by him. That's to fear God too. Yeah. And I would say that a lot of American Christians, there are two sides. There is, and I kind of alluded to it, and I said different things in each service, and so you might have been in the service where I talked about it or I didn't, but I mean we have become way comfortable with immorality. Yeah. So there's that side, of American Christianity that's like, oh, I'm fine with abortion. I'm fine with sexual distortions. I'll get tipsy from time to time. I'll smoke a joint. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
You know, I'll go on a date and go a little too far. You know, I like there is that aspect of it, and then there is the other aspect that I feel like is maybe more common in American Christianity, which is like, okay, like, you know, I'm too old at this point to go get drunk, you know, like not me literally, but people like, I've grown out of that. You know, you're not avoiding drunkenness because of this deep covenant to God. You're avoiding drunkenness because the last time you did, you realize I was too old for this.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever the case. Like there is something to be said for our behavior in a lot of people gets better simply by getting older.
Yeah.
Right? So the fear of God or the lack thereof that I see in much of American Christianity is less the immorality, although there is great compromise. It is more in the realm of convenience, casual, non-attentive, not focused, going about your life.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, that's, you know, calling on God when you need him, calling on God when it's not good.
Yeah.
And to me, that's, I grieve over that, you know, and I grieve over parts of my own life, you know, where I see that because I just ponder how much he's done for me, and I ponder who he is as my creator, and I ponder who he is as my savior. And it just, I said it in the message, like grace cost him everything. It ought to cost me something too.
Yeah.
And I hope I articulated it well, not from the standpoint of, you know, my salvation, you know, getting to heaven, but just out of gratitude and out of a desire to walk with God and know God. Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when we get to eternity, we'll be with him. Yeah, I want to live this life, you know, as intertwined with him as I can. And I'm not where I want to be. Let me just say that as the pastor, like there's more that I could do. And, you know, I'm even careful in talking that way because you know, that like I could do more can become a haunting thought. It can become a guilt-laden, condemning thought. And I don't want to lead anybody into that.
Yeah.
I mean, the tension of a message like Sunday, a couple people text me with some encouragement and affirmations, and I was just like, the tension of a message like Sunday is, I don't want to pull any punches.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, I don't want to beat the people up. You know, so there's just that tension even in trying to minister a message like that on Sunday.
Yeah. And as we bring this to a close, a few minutes left, how would, if someone is struggling with this, not because they struggle with the Lord or they struggle with the idea, but let's say they're dealing with like addiction or something in their life. They're like, I understand the fear of the Lord. I need to do this, but I feel trapped with what I'm doing. How would anyone kind of approach this topic with that kind of background, you know?
I mean, it's a good question, and we've probably touched on this. Like I have a great deal of mercy and compassion for somebody who's an addict, for somebody who is in bad patterns that they cannot seem to get out of it. I have a lot of mercy there. As opposed to the believer who just starts willfully making bad decisions. It's like, and so, you know, how do I speak to them as it pertains to the fear of the Lord? I would recommend that second aspect of it, a matter of constancy, consistency, persistence, intentional devotion. You know, a lot of times addiction is some physical, and then it is psychological, And it is rooted in a need to be healed or a need to forgive or, something that is influencing us in the deepest parts of our soul. And so, how do you get that uprooted? Well, there is one who uproots it. So part of the fear of the Lord is, hey, I am going to be constant in my pursuit of him. I'm not going to be convenient. I'm going to be consistent. And then I mentioned in the message, perfection is not the requirement. Repentant and contrite, it's the requirement.
Yeah.
And you just, that's not repentance and contrition are not values in our American society.
Yeah.
At this point. Digging in your heels, fighting for your turf. Those are clearly what the values have become. Humility is not. Everybody wants to blame everybody else for lacking humility while they are unwilling to acknowledge any of their shortcomings.
Yeah.
And so being a person that's repentant and contrite matters a lot, I believe, to the Lord. I think it matters a lot in walking toward freedom.
Yeah.
To not give in to like what's got a hold of you, to not just surrender to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, this message, and of course this week we're going to shift gears in the series, and we're going to talk about different things that we fear or we struggle to, in the place of fear. But I come back to a thought that I said pretty early in the message, that like the fear of God is the path out of all other fears. And so between like I honor and revere the Lord enough, and I take him seriously enough that I'm going to obey him, and I'm going to break rank with illegitimate ties, and I'm going to sever patterns and habits that aren't pleasing to him. I'm going to do the work of severing those. And then on the flip side, it's hard to do that unless I fear the Lord in the sense of taking him seriously with constancy, consistency. I believe those things break emotional fear entanglements off of our lives.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I just want us to be a church. I thought the message was important. I've said it enough times, like the number one responsibility of the church is not to win the world. That's not the number one responsibility of the church. I don't know where that ideology started. I can't speak historically enough to that. I don't know if that's predominantly American or if that's worldwide. I can't speak. I've said, like, it's the third thing on the list.
Yeah.
Right, of the responsibility of the church. The first thing on the list is to glorify God. Like, that's what the church comes together to do, to worship the Lord. The Lord is the number one priority of the church.
Yeah.
Like the Lord, honoring him, fearing him, reverencing him is the number one priority of the church. I have speculations on why we, often win the world ahead of that. I think it's probably rooted in a lot of insecure leaders that find validation in more and more people showing up to listen to them talk.
Yeah.
So, like, win the world is the good moral sounding overlay of I want more people because I want to feel better about myself because I want to feel like a success. Right? I mean, just candid talk.
Yeah.
Now, I have some friends in my life that are like, they're very passionate about winning the lost, and it's a deep burden.
Yeah.
And it, like, their zeal for winning the lost stirs me to have a deeper passion and burden for it. But I feel like one of the mantles on my life is whatever I lead, the Lord God Almighty is the number one priority of it.
Yeah.
And anything else is an outflow from it. The second being to live in fellowship as a church and to edify the body and to equip the body. Like
Yeah.
that's the second thing.
Yeah.
And then church is about winning the world. But I want to make sure, the message in part was hey, like Cornerstone, we're going to do our best to win the world.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do our best to turn the world upside down. But our greatest priority is to fear the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Our greatest priority is to be a church that glorifies the Lord. The Lord is our great priority.
Yeah.
What there's the great commandment, the great commission, right? The great commandment to love God and love people, but to love God, like is the superseding responsibility of every believer.
Yeah.
So,
well, if you need help with anything we've talked about today, whether it's fear of the Lord, addiction, or you're struggling with fear in your life, which we'll be getting into in the next couple of weeks, we're here for you. So connect with us, cornerstonenashville.org. Call us at 615-865-6655. We're here for you. As we just talked about, the church is to glorify God. We're here for each other and to win the world. So if you need help, reach out to us. We're here for you. And make sure you get connected. You're here on Sunday. You're here on a Wednesday. And we look forward to seeing you in person. If you can't make it, you can watch us online at csnlive.org. But we look forward to seeing you Sunday, 8:30 a.m., 10:30 a.m., or even if you're watching this on a Wednesday, you need to come Wednesday night services, 6:30 p.m. Regardless, we love you, and we just hope that you have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you next time.